All right, guys. So in lieu of a wrestling nostalgia night, I brought on a previous co-host and a patron of the show, Zachary Smith, and we talked for an hour and a half about the upcoming WrestleMania card and what it could look like. We touch, of course, on Super Showdown, Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton, Edge. We talked about Seth Rollins, Shayna Baszler and Becky, Rhea Ripley and Charlotte. So we cover a lot of the potential and presumed WrestleMania matches. So we give our thoughts, our analysis, had a couple of laughs. It's a great conversation. So you guys are going to want to tune in. It's certainly one of the longer shows. So, take this at your leisure and it'll get started right after this. So you guys love wrestling. I know you do because you're listening to this show, but my guess is that many of you are also into fitness. And if you're into fitness, there's no better place to go than to check out the My Fitness Pod. It's a podcast that can be found on Apple, Spotify, Google, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Breaker Podcast, Anchor.fm. And there's also an Instagram page. It's at Adam Fuller Fit. So what they do, and the podcast is awesome because it gives you tips, techniques, and motivation for fitness enthusiasts and people who just want to even begin a journey, right? We all have to start somewhere. It helps encourage people to keep going while instructing helpful tips on how to succeed at the same time. So again, you can check them out at Adam Fuller Fit on Instagram, or you can check out The Fitness Pod, which can be found basically anywhere that podcasts can be found. There's also a website at adamfullerfit.wixsite.com/fitness. That's adamfullerfit.wixsite.com/fitness. So if you want some relaxing yet really catchy music, check out William Odell Hughes with his new song, I Can't Take It. It's part of an upcoming album called Changes that's going to be released in April of 2020, so just a couple of months away. This is a really catchy tune, and I'm going to give you guys a sample of the song. And again, you can find the album Changes that's going to be released in April of 2020. It's a song called I Can't Take It from William Odell Hughes.
No, 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 no.
Welcome to the WWE Podcast, the most passionate and authentic wrestling analysis on the web. We've got you covered with every Raw, SmackDown, and NXT show, giving you a no bullshit opinion. We know you love wrestling. We do too. So let's get this show underway.
And that's the bottom line. What? 'Cause Stone Cold said so.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me on this, what is it? Thursday, February 20th, 2020. So it's 02/20/2020. And if you were also aware of that at 2:20 this afternoon, well, congratulations. That will be the only time in your life that number sequence in time will happen, right? Because I highly doubt any of us will be around for 30:30, right? And it'll be 3:30 at 30:30. So congratulations if you noticed. I missed it, so I will never get that moment back. But if you did, and congratulations for whatever the heck that's worth. Thank you guys for joining me again. I've got a guest today, and typically I don't have a guest. And yesterday was just a cluster, you know what, because I was originally going to do a wrestling nostalgia, but I was also going to have a guest on, and then that went to hell because my son got sick. And had to cancel and reschedule at the last second. So we pushed it to today. And I normally never have my own show on Thursday. I'll be also releasing, and it should be released already by the time you listen to this, the NXT review from Chris. So I'll be dropping that show along with this one. So it was just a cluster yesterday. And Wrestling Nostalgia got put on hold, and we just talked WrestleMania, essentially. And we discussed the card and what we could see shaping up and the foregone conclusion matches, and really broke down a lot of the major programs and the things we loved and the things we didn't. And it was just a great time. So, Zach, thanks so much for coming on. And Ashley, if you're listening to this, we did mention you during the show. In a very loving way, so you have to stay tuned as we discuss Ashley just briefly on the show. So, guys, thanks again for joining me. You can head on over to Patreon if you want to get a ad-free experience for all the shows at patreon.com/WWE podcast, and there's video, and there's also a blog section there that you can get exclusive blogs and some other things. So head on over there. You can get on the show. You can get tweeted out. You can get mentioned on the show. You can do video. There's a whole bunch of stuff. So really recommend that you head on over to Patreon, or you can just head on over to the plain old website at wwepodcast.com for the latest updates and all my shows. And I promise I'm working on getting video up there as well. I have a video section, but nothing's there, but there will be. So stay tuned for that. And all the updates that you get from me will be via Twitter. So at the WWE podcast is where you can go. You can also, if you're interested, I know I don't plug this too often, and this will be the final plug, I promise, is if you go to Fiverr, Fiverr.com, and search out the username Matt3166, I have a gig on there where you can you can place your ad on this show. And it's for as little as $10. I mean, you pick your ad. I can read it for you. I can create a script for you and put your ad for your podcast, your website, your product, whatever. I can place it in this show. So head on over to Fiverr and search out Matt3166. Or you can just do WWE. Just put like WWE in the search bar and I'll come up. So anyway, on to stuff that matters, on to why we're here, and that's to talk WWE, to talk wrestling. And obviously we haven't watched SmackDown, but that will be for a later show. AEW reviews coming, NXT reviews going to be out or is already out, and then I come back on Sunday with Anthony DeMarco as we wrap the week up and look ahead to the Super Showdown a week from today in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And we preview that show as well as give our thoughts on SmackDown. So it's going to be a loaded show this weekend with Anthony, and obviously with AEW and what is going on there with Cody Rhodes continuing to just cut, promos that would bring a tear to eyes of performers in WWE. I mean, it's not even close, folks. I mean, go look at Cody Rhodes' promo from last night after his cage match, bloody, battered. I mean, it's what pro wrestling is. It's what pro wrestling should emote, and that's emotions. Make you feel something. And Cody Rhodes has the ultimate gift of being able to make you feel something. That's what you watch TV for. That's what you watch movies for. That's what we watch pro wrestling for. We are emotional beings, and when we don't have emotion, we don't care. And Cody Rhodes makes you care. So, boy, it was just good. So check that out as I, on the WWE podcast, promote AEW. So, all right, guys. Well, let's get to the conversation with Zach. Again, we cover so much stuff. It is a long podcast, as you probably see from the from the timestamp here. It's a much longer show than typical, but that's cool, right? Sometimes you love the longer shows, and it gives you an opportunity to kind of break up your day or whatever it may be. So here comes Zach and I as we discuss WrestleMania again. One last thing, if you want to get on this show and you want your comment on this show or your question, your voice, email me your voice, email me your question via an audio file to realwwepodcast@gmail.com, and I'll get your question, your comment, your rant, whatever, into this show. I'll insert it in there. Just create a voice memo and send it to me via mail at realwwepodcast@gmail.com. So, alrighty. That's enough. Let's stop here and get to the conversation. I'll be back on Sunday with Anthony as we round out the week and talk Super Showdown. Until then, guys, I'll talk to you next time. All right, everybody. Welcome to the WWE podcast. It is Thursday. Yes, a Thursday. It is a day that we had to reschedule from yesterday. I'm welcoming Zachary Smith back to the show. And we had to reschedule because of, well, life, right? I felt awful about it. We were supposed to do this yesterday, and I know that I haven't missed a day in giving you guys a show that I've been on my schedule for in quite a while. So, but hey, when your kids get sick, all hell breaks loose. So I had to push it to today. I'm glad that we could make this happen. And Zach, welcome back to the show. It's a pleasure to have you back here.
Sir, thank you very much for having me back. I'm glad that we were able to work it out. Sorry that everything kind of happened right before we were going to record yesterday, but I'm excited. I'm glad we were able to get it done.
No, me too. It's funny. When I say it happened just before, I'm talking literally about 5 minutes before. I had my chair set up. I had my mic set up. I have the computer on, and I see, and it was because it was his bedtime, I see my son walk out of his bedroom and just like screaming. He's got a runny nose. He's like nauseous. It was a disaster. So it literally was the minute before. But we are here. We're ready to talk wrestling. We are probably going to be and should be touching on the Super Showdown. And Zach, I'm going to toss the ball to you. What is the first thing that comes to mind to you right now when you look at the current product with WWE?
So the first thing that kind of comes to mind as I was watching Raw and things like that, because I know that's part of what we were going to be talking about. But honestly, one of the things that popped into my head is what you and I were talking about a little bit before we started recording. And as you mentioned, Super Showdown is coming up. But it's on a Thursday, and you and I took maybe 4 or 5 minutes to talk about it, and for the life of us, couldn't figure out why they're doing it on a Thursday. I think that it's a little bit interesting in that Super Showdown and the Saudi Arabia shows have kind of been glorified house shows with a lot of returns. It's kind of a funky Super Showdown this time, where it's certainly more interesting. I'm certainly more likely to watch it than I am this time. I don't know if everybody feels that way about what we know is going to happen so far, but it's kind of an interesting mashup of things that they're preparing for.
It is. When you look at this, and I know that there's this dark cloud always hanging over these Saudi Arabia events. I understand people protesting, not wanting to watch, all of the bad press that happened a couple of years ago with the murdered journalist and how they've treated women, and now we're supposed to celebrate that they're, finally allowing women to compete, and all these things that are always hanging over the Saudi Arabia shows. So I agree, though, that this one in particular, out of all of the ones that have happened before it, seems to be the most interesting from a number of perspectives. I mean, you could look at Brock Lesnar Ricochet. While that seems to be a pretty foregone conclusioned match, it certainly is interesting in the perspective of how long Ricochet could hang against Brock Lesnar. I mean, that really is the story. It's not necessarily the outcome, just for that one in particular.
Exactly. And I was looking at what we talked about the last time I was on, and it was before Rey Mysterio and Brock Lesnar. And you asked me what was going to happen, and I told you Rey was going to die. And while Rey did lose, and we knew he was going to lose, it was still an interesting match. And at this point, we all know Brock does really well with guys that are significantly smaller than him. And I haven't seen Ricochet have a bad match yet. So while I know how it's going to end, it is going to be interesting to see those two styles together, because they set it up with Ricochet doing the promo on Brock, and that's clearly not his strong suit. And then the Royal Rumble, he helped with the elimination. And now they're having a match, so at least there's a story behind it so that we can see something interesting. And Brock hasn't had many bad matches since he's been back. So I think that'll be a really interesting match to just watch what happens.
It is. And the outcome again is irrelevant. I would be, I mean, out of all the years I've been watching wrestling, this would be in my top 10 if Ricochet were to win here.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be astounding, but not in a good way, because I think it's not the time to do it. And I think there'd be a lot of resentment. It would throw things into chaos. It's not good not good publicity in this case, but I think this match is not just how long Ricochet can last, but also about giving him the rub from Brock, about giving him the spotlight against Brock. We don't need a Kofi Kingston 8-second special here. If they do that, that will completely do a disservice to Ricochet being in this match, and he is a future star. Kofi is kind of the past and just hit it at the right time at the right place. He's not necessarily the future like Ricochet is. So Ricochet, I think here is, in a loss, needs to come out looking better and looking like he could hang and have a couple of hope spots where he uses his speed against Brock Lesnar. I think that's the story they're going to tell. If it's 5 minutes, fine. I mean, I don't need a 15-minute run around and him outsmarting Brock and getting a quicker hit on him and whatever. This is about building Ricochet, and that's the single purpose of this match.
It's really is the single purpose, and they've given him a couple chances now with a microphone, and unfortunately that's just not his strong suit. And so you kind of know with WWE, the way that you're going to get ahead more so than the in-ring part is the microphone part, which is something that he just needs time to improve on. But in the meantime, he's one of your most exciting wrestlers, and really it can be a fast, quick match. That's fine, exactly like you said. All I need to see is the same thing that happened with Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles and Finn Balor, where Brock wins, but as Brock's walking up the ramp, he's very clearly hurt, and it very clearly took him more than he thought it would. If you can do that, I feel like you can make a guy even at a loss. That's going to do so much for him.
Exactly. That is the key here. And unlike you have Bray Wyatt, right, in his championship, I mean, I just don't see how, I mean, as far as match quality, I absolutely expect Brock Lesnar Ricochet to supersede the Goldberg-Bray Wyatt match in terms of match quality. In terms of length, I put a Twitter poll up, and it was like 53-47. Most people thought that Brock Ricochet was going to be longer than Bray and Goldberg.
Yeah.
I mean, you can make a case both ways of which match is going to be longer, but switching gears to that particular program, now, it's weird that Hulk Hogan shoved his face in this thing last week, which was nothing, I think, more than, Hogan always is trying to stay relevant. He's all about the Hogan brand. He had a lot of his merchandise behind him. He's always promoting himself, and I can respect that, but it was a little bit transparent. And then he said, hey, I'll see you at the Hall of Fame instead of I'll see you at Saudi Arabia. So I don't know Hogan's role in this, but now Goldberg is facing The Fiend, and it's kind of a weird scenario. People are concerned about this, and I think if you look at this, I think Goldberg has a better chance to beat Bray, although I really would advise against it, than Ricochet does. How would you break all that down?
If we're going to compare, and as far as Hulk Hogan is concerned, he's been inserting himself in things since before he interrupted Bret Hart and Yokozuna's match. Like, this is classic Hulk Hogan stuff, to just insert himself in the middle. But as far as the matches go, I tend to agree with you that there is that chance that they think the same way they did with Goldberg the last time, which is he wins the title, he goes on this little run. But my hopeful side would say that I am hoping that the point of this match is to give The Fiend somebody different, because thus far he's had Finn Balor, Bray Wyatt has had The Miz, and then he had Daniel Bryan twice. And so he's had smaller guys who have kind of tried to outwork him, and that hasn't worked. And so my thinking would be you would put somebody in there who's a power guy who can just go in there, spear, jackhammer, another spear, it doesn't put him down, and then we build The Fiend a little bit. You are right that of the two matches, Goldberg is much more likely to walk out with the Universal title than Ricochet is with the WWE title, but I don't really see the point in completely stopping that momentum when we're not that far away from WrestleMania. And if you're going to do something like that, I would at least like it to be somebody who can carry a match and not somebody you have to do 4-minute matches with. I think that would be a mistake going into the new season. I think the same way you thought Ricochet would have the backlash, Goldberg had it when he beat Kevin Owens, and I think we would have the same problem this time.
And I think Goldberg would, that would turn Goldberg heel real quick.
Yeah.
And if people think that the people would cheer against Bray Wyatt with a guy that really was a WCW, he was the face of WCW for a while. He certainly made an impact. He's a legend. but he's a guy that is very one-dimensional. He's got, he's like a one-trick pony, and he'll be the first to admit it. A hell of an athlete, but not a great wrestler. He's never going to put on that 5-star match. So if they ever pull that trigger, it will be an immense backlash. I mean, to the point where Twitter may actually crash. Like it would be a complete PR disaster. But unless the goal is to turn Goldberg heel, I mean, then boom, you got the hottest heel in the company, and you turn Bray Wyatt instantly mega babyface for doing that. But the thing is, even if they, I mean, whether they do or they don't, do you think Vince McMahon is tempted by Goldberg hanging around from now until WrestleMania, where he sees Roman Reigns and he's got the spear, and he sees Goldberg and he's got the spear, and it's spear versus spear, and this, and that's how they market it. I could see that happening. Or do you think it's a foregone conclusion that we get Bray Wyatt versus Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship at WrestleMania?
I've been operating under the assumption that it is a foregone conclusion that somehow Roman's going to get back to the Universal title. You know that he had the leukemia spout and he came back. He wanted to take it slow. And while that is admirable, you also know that the other side of that is that the WWE doesn't want to turn Roman heel, but they also want him to be their guy. So they took it slow, put him in different feuds with different guys, and kept him away from the championship, which is why he hasn't had the same reaction that he has had. But I feel like at this point, they're getting antsy about him not being in that spot. They clearly love Roman to be the main event of WrestleMania. And if you're going to do that, then I can't think of many things I would like to see less than spear versus spear for the Universal title. I just can't imagine a world in which that's a good match. I already saw that with Brock Lesnar, and I don't think it's going to be better. I could at least get into The Fiend and Roman Reigns just because it is The Fiend. But like I said, I've just been operating under the assumption that it's going to be Roman going to WrestleMania.
I have as well. I think, in addition, most of the WWE fans have as well, that yes, we can all see it coming a mile away. People have been talking about this match for months, that it's a fait accompli. It's going to happen. Mm-hmm. We're going to see it. And I've kind of come to terms with it that we're going to see it. And I guess that in that likely scenario, of course, Vince could throw a curveball, which he's been known to do whenever he thinks that fans have locked things in for a match that's definitely going to happen, or an outcome that's definitely going to happen. Those are the situations you really need to watch out with Vince, because those are the ones he likes to turn it on its head. But assuming that doesn't happen, in the most likely scenario, if it's just a straight up Roman versus Bray Wyatt, The Fiend for the Universal Championship, it's an interesting matchup because you have Bray Wyatt on one hand, who has got one of the most original characters WWE has had in a decade. You have Roman Reigns that is on this comeback story. I'm sure they'll do a 365 on it, and they'll do this whole day by day, and it ends with him winning the championship at WrestleMania. And yeah, it's a feel good story. But do you think? I mean, this is a tough decision, because while Roman going to WrestleMania and winning the championship has been a habit, it stopped with Brock Lesnar a few WrestleManias ago, when we all believed Roman was going to beat Brock and let's just get through it. And Vince waited until SummerSlam that year to actually pull the trigger. So what would you do if you were booking this match? If it's Roman, if it's Bray for the Universal Championship, would you have Roman go over clean? Would you have Bray go over clean? Would you have Bray go over, but in a heel way, so it just kind of maintains their roles? What would you do here? I mean, there's a case to be made here for both sides.
There really is a case for both sides. The Fiend is the best character in wrestling Bray Wyatt created out of his own head. And in some ways, it feels like it's too soon to beat him, which was one of the problems with giving him the championship, is that, well, then somebody's eventually going to have to beat him. There is a world, and I think the most likely scenario, where if Roman is going to win, they do exactly what you said. He gets a 365. We go back over the leukemia, his journey back, and then the big culmination is supposed to be him winning the title. But I'm telling you, you're going to have to do like you did every year and edit the audio, because people aren't going to get behind it, because it's been the same Roman Reigns. If if I'm the new head of the company, the Fiend goes over clean over Roman Reigns and retains the championship. I think that also feeds into, I think everybody's expecting Roman, and Vince might say, well, we'll keep it on the Fiend and have him beat Roman. But if I am Vince McMahon and I have to operate in that scary headspace, and I can picture the meeting where he's like, Roman is going to win the title. If we have to do that, then I would take what you said about the Fiend, but make it Roman. I would have Roman do something underhanded to win the title, something very blatant, something where he's going after the Fiend the same way Daniel Bryan did, but can't put him down. And eventually he cheats, he wins. We do that heel turn, because I've been thinking about it. And everybody always says they want Roman to be a heel. Roman needs to be a heel. He was a heel for one program when he was WWE champion, when Seth Rollins beat him before Dean Ambrose beat Seth Rollins. When they went into that match, de facto, that he wasn't actually a heel, but he worked as a heel. He was an a-hole. He worked stiff. He did all these things, and it was so much better. So if I have to go with Roman winning the title, if we can get to that version of him and not just make it a fairy tale story that nobody buys as a fairy tale, I can kind of get my head around that. And I think the Fiend is still going to be okay if you do it that way.
I think it's the only way you could do this and be successful with Roman going over, because I don't care how well you think you're going to construct this match for the crowd to not turn on Roman if he wins. Even during the match, I think that it will be a pro-Fiend crowd. It's WrestleMania. The people in attendance have traditionally been a much, I hate to label them as hardcore or the internet wrestling community or whatever nonsensical, non-traditional, terrible label that Corey Graves and Michael Cole are instructed through their headsets to deliver the message to the people at home that, oh, this is not how people normally act. Well, beyond that, I mean, there is just no way to successfully, I believe, get the Fiend to the level of the heel that they envision and hope he needs to be for Roman to get cheered, for people to just forget about the past, forget that he's essentially the exact same guy with zero progression in terms of his character. He's gotten better on the mic, no question. He's looks the exact same. He's still got his vest. He still comes out to his music. Okay, he changed from the crowd to down the ramp. There really hasn't been anything different for me to latch onto a Roman Reigns babyface character. There's been nothing that emotionally invests me into him wanting to see him win. I just don't feel it. He's a great performer, great guy. He puts on excellent matches, but that's not the point with his character. The point is he just does not resonate with 80% of the audience that watches this show. And yeah, he hasn't been getting booed at the shows as much, but I think it's a matter of those that boo him either are just kind of neutral or maybe clap for him after the match for a great match. And you just hear the other 20% or 25 or 30% that are cheering for him. So it's people are more being quiet rather than actively booing him. And now that he's going away from Baron Corbin, and my God, does he need to get away from Baron Corbin? I mean, geez, that's a program that I think we can all say in unison, like, please end a week from today.
Absolutely.
For God's sakes.
Yeah.
So,
how many times you need to do it? Yeah.
I mean, I get it, and I know fans are impatient. They always want new. They want new, and I understand that. But in this case, it feels like they've been feuding for like 8 months, and it's crazy. So just to conclude my point, I think that there is no successful way to book or strategize a way to get the Fiend that hot of a heel to where people want to see Roman win the championship and to have the WrestleMania audience accept his win clean over the Fiend. I don't see a way.
No, and I can already see kind of the blueprint in my head of how they want to do it. Kind of the same way they did with Brock, where he's supposed to be the bad guy, and you pump Brock down so that people like Roman more. But come match time, all that did was it made people not care about Brock and not like Roman, which made for a boring crowd reaction in a match. So if you're going to try and do that again, you can certainly try, but it's going to be like the last 4 or 5 WrestleManias where it's been the exact same thing. If people are going to hate it anyway and you want him to be your champion, you could do that, but the only way you're going to do it and get I guess a negative, but in this case a positive reaction, is to lean into it and have Roman cheat to win. And then when people are booing him, it'll actually make sense, instead of Michael Cole telling me that people cheer who they normally boo and boo who they normally cheer.
And I don't think it's going to be one of those scenarios where people cheer him now because he's a heel. I love that argument where people say, oh, well, watch, when he turns heel, people are going to cheer him. They said the same thing about Randy. They said the same thing about Seth Rollins, and look what Seth Rollins is doing, right? Yeah. So people are not cheering these guys. They are booing them because they're being true heels. So I don't believe people will be rebellious just to be rebellious. That's not how it works. Anyway, I think we've covered our point on that. I mean, we're talking about a match that hasn't even been announced yet, but Vince could throw a complete curveball our way, and he's been known to do it, which scares the hell out of me about how long. But it's just because anytime we have so much ahead of time, it's just, oh, this is what's going to happen, and it comes out on the internet, and everyone just believes it. I'm very hesitant about this whole thing from now to WrestleMania. So we'll see. But speaking of good heels, though, as I touched on very quickly, what are your thoughts so far on Randy Orton and what he's done with Matt Hardy, and initially what he did with Edge, 3-4 weeks ago now? We haven't seen or heard from Edge. What are your thoughts?
The thoughts are that was an extremely smooth transition, first off, into our next topic. And then as far as Randy goes, I think it's been a really cool story so far. The thing about Randy is that he's excellent in the ring. Nobody disputes that. His only problem has been, other than being a jerk sometimes, there's plenty of stories about that, but his in-ring problem has been, if you give him a story that he is not into, you're not getting 100% of him. Well, when you have Edge return, you have him tease Rated RKO, you have him attack the neck and a stunned silence comes over the crowd, then that's a great way to, one, have Randy be a heel, but two, give him a really good story that he's really going to be into. And at first, I was confused as to why Matt Hardy would be the one that comes out to his defense, given everything that happened between the two of them. But I like that the story progressed with Matt, and that you're able to tell this story without Edge being on TV, because now he can sell that injury. So it's been interesting to see Randy kind of go back to this sadistic version of himself where he's hurting people, but he also seems kind of conflicted about it. And there's some layers here. And I think I feel like the best matches always start with some deeply personal conflict. And I feel like that's going to be a really good one going into WrestleMania between the two of them.
And it's interesting, too. We still haven't gotten an actual explanation from Randy, and I don't know. Nope. It's been a month now, and I don't know if it's something we're going to get. I think we need one. I don't care. It doesn't have to be overthought. It could be partially because our Edge eliminated him from the Rumble, and then go into, he's still in the spotlight. I don't know, whatever. There's a multitude of things. Just give us something, and it's been a lot of partial answers over the last few weeks. I also like how Randy Orton is every time he does what he does, he's saying, I'm sorry. I love Edge like a brother. Yeah. All these things that it's so contradictory to his actions, which makes you hate him even more. He's doing, like you said, if Randy's not into something, you'll know it, and nobody backstage is going to give him crap for it.
And then it's also...
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say it's also interesting because then, when he's attacking Edge and he sits on the top rope and then he waits and he's conflicted, it also gives people a chance to be like, oh, no, please don't. It gives more of a chance than if he just attacked him and kept attacking him. It's adding something to it that you don't really see a lot.
You don't. And he does everything very slow, methodical. He takes his time. That segment on Raw, my God, would they go on 20 minutes? And, but I didn't feel bored. At times I was getting impatient, but I think as a heel, you're getting it. I mean, you want people to legitimately get angry, and he's just slow and he's taking his time, and I'm getting annoyed, and I'm like, well, come on, do it or don't. But that's the reaction that you should have.
Right.
And yeah, you could touch on, well, if WWE management told Matt Hardy he's not cleared, and Randy did what he did to Edge and what he did to Matt Hardy last week, why the hell is no one coming out to save him again from certain death, right?
Yeah,
I mean, like, that is a little bit unbelievable, especially when you give him 20 minutes to ponder whether he's going to do what he's going to do, and no one comes out to help him, and this is a company that's supposed to watch the wellness of their stars, especially one that's not even medically cleared, right? So, but taking all of that aside, and it is a little bit of a hole there in the story, but all that aside, that doesn't even matter, because what Randy Orton has done, we've seen now a motivated Randy Orton for the first time in a decade. It feels like that we have Orton in a story that actually matters, and he's not just this legacy star hanging out on SmackDown burning down houses and woods and whatever he does, and like he feels he's at, I think, the top of his game. He feels like the old Randy Orton from 15 years ago, the legend killer, when he would punt people in the head and he'd kiss Stephanie in front of Triple H while he's handcuffed to the ropes. Like, sick stuff, and he knows how to get into your head. So I'm loving it.
Absolutely. I can absolutely get on board with this version of Randy Orton. This was always the best version of Randy Orton. And again, it's clearly just that he loves Edge in the backstage, and he's really excited to do this. And if you are going to bring Edge back, this is the way that you should do it, because the next time we see Edge, the reaction is going to be crazy, and all you got to do is give Randy a really good story, and he's going to be all into it. And I love it so far. He's clearly very into what he's doing right now.
And he should be. I mean, this is the best story that WWE's had in quite a while, especially from the key here is emotional investment. People are emotionally invested in Edge returning. When he came back at the Rumble, I've said this a number of times, it was one of the best moments as a wrestling fan when you have those, because they're so few and far between. It was just giving you chills, and it was awesome. And obviously this is leading to a match between the two at WrestleMania. I mean, like, that's just a foregone conclusion, and that's fine. That's the way it should be. It's going to be interesting to see over the next few weeks and how they continue to build Randy's heat. I had a co-host, I think it was Ashley, on last week, and she mentioned how, well, what if they bring on Beth Phoenix, and what if Randy Orton comes on to NXT or Christian next week, or Jeff Hardy? I mean, take your pick. He could go from Jeff to Christian to his wife. And what if he lands an RKO on his wife? I mean, like, there's things that they could do. And yes, it's a PG environment, but an RKO is a safe bump. It doesn't look that awful. And
it's not a punt.
It's not. No, it's a safe bump for almost anyone to take. It's just like land face forward, but don't hit your face. I mean, out of finishers and maneuvers, it's not the hardest thing to take. And I don't think from the PG perspective, it would definitely toe the line. And I get it. But I think the payoff would be worth it. I mean, imagine the heat on Randy Orton if he did that to Beth Phoenix. So
that would be incredible. Every week or so, Ashley will say like one or two things that make me feel bad about myself for not thinking of them.
I know. She does that to me all the time. So damn it, Ashley.
Getting sick of it, Ashley, frankly. Trying to work my way in here. You're coming up with smart stuff.
Yeah, I know. Try being the host of the show and having her do that. Like, one up me on the show. Try that. So, right? Ashley, you're being called out right now.
I just feel like if you were to do that to Beth Phoenix, that would, one, make Randy the biggest heel in the company if he's not already. But two, whenever you're ready to bring Edge back, that would be a reason to bring Edge back. If I'm Edge and you're attacking Matt Hardy, that sucks, but I'm not necessarily going to rush myself back to save Matt. All right, now you RKO'd my wife. Now that's also a reason for Edge to come back, to get really personal. I think that would be perfect. I think Christian would work for that too, but I think Beth Phoenix would be the best choice for that. But it would seem as though they would go with like a Christian there, but I would love it to be Beth Phoenix.
And imagine if he RKOs her and then just like slithers down next to her and like kisses her on the ear or something. Like, the things that they could do with this, that it would still be PG, but my God, I don't know how they don't see this as a massive opportunity.
Yeah.
Beth, I'm sure, would be all on board.
100%.
Edge would be on board. It would take this thing, an already great thing, and skyrocket it to nuclear heat for Randy Orton. It would be a joy to watch. It would be awesome. And I don't know. So I'm already getting pumped for something that hasn't even happened. But even if that doesn't happen, this feud is still great. And I don't know when we'll see Edge back. I don't believe Randy Orton is scheduled for anything at Saudi Arabia. No. So I would assume maybe the Monday Night Raw after the Super Showdown that we might see Edge back, or maybe they'll wait till after Elimination Chamber. So do you have any feeling on when we might see Edge again?
I mean, it feels like you don't need Edge yet, and it also feels like you don't need Edge until right before WrestleMania. As far as Edge goes, he's going to get his reaction. People are going to want to see him beat the hell out of Randy Orton. Really, the only problem is how long, like you said, are you going to go with Randy, and are you going to lose some of the effect that this has had? So I would think that they would want to wait until after Elimination Chamber, because if you bring him back next Monday, then people are going to be wondering, are we going to set something up for the Elimination Chamber? So I would think that first Raw after Elimination Chamber, and then he attacks Randy, and then we go from there. Then we can have, their promo package kind of promos for the match at WrestleMania. But it feels like you definitely don't need him yet, and it feels like you can hold it off until Elimination Chamber, or after, rather.
Stay right there. The WWE podcast will return after this quick break.
So you guys love wrestling. I know you do because you're listening to this show, but my guess is that many of you are also into fitness. And if you're into fitness, there's no better place to go than to check out the My Fitness Pod. It's a podcast that can be found on Apple, Spotify, Google, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Breaker Podcast, Anchor.fm. And there's also an Instagram page. It's at Adam Fuller Fit. So what they do, and the podcast is awesome because it gives you tips, techniques, and motivation for fitness enthusiasts and people who just want to even begin a journey, right? We all have to start somewhere. It helps encourage people to keep going while instructing helpful tips on how to succeed at the same time. So again, you can check them out at Adam Fuller Fit on Instagram, or you can check out The Fitness Pod, which can be found basically anywhere that podcasts can be found. There's also a website at adamfullerfit.wixsite.com/fitness. That's adamfullerfit.wixsite.com/fitness. So if you want some relaxing yet really catchy music, check out William Odell Hughes with his new song, I Can't Take It. It's part of an upcoming album called Changes that's going to be released in April of 2020, so just a couple of months away. This is a really catchy tune, and I'm going to give you guys a sample of the song. And again, you can find the album Changes that's going to be released in April of 2020. It's a song called I Can't Take It from William Odell Hughes.
No, 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 no.
Welcome back to the WWE podcast. Let's get back to more great wrestling audio.
Yeah, you probably can. I'm in no rush to see him back. I like the anticipation that you don't know when we're going to see him again. We've heard nothing. I like that. I know people feel like they need to see everybody every week. I'm not of that belief.
No.
I am patient enough. I understand the psychology of the old adage, right? Absence makes the heart grow fonder, right?
Yeah.
So in this case, boy, you get Edge back, you get that awesome return, and then boom, Randy Orton cuts it short, and we haven't seen him in a month. I mean, it's been masterfully done from the booking, from the execution, just everything. So to me, it's the best thing going in WWE right now is this story. So another thing I think that is highly anticipated at WrestleMania is the Shayna Baszler and Becky Lynch program. And people are so mixed on this, and I see both sides. Not just about this, well, not about the match. I think people are anticipating the match, and I think it's an excellent matchup. The best thing that they could have done for Becky Lynch and Shayna, for that matter. It is WrestleMania worthy.
Yep.
But more of the bite to the neck, and Shayna Baszler biting the neck of Becky, and people are very split on this. I can honestly argue myself on whether I like it, because there are two schools of thought. Where do you land on that? How she came in and what she did and Becky's response to it?
I have two takeaways from this. One, I just found what my kind of gimmick for being a guest on this podcast is. Ashley says smart stuff. The last time we recorded, we spent a good chunk of time talking about Rowan and his cage. And this time when I come on, Shayna Baszler bit a woman's neck like a vampire would. I'm so excited that I get to even talk about it. At first, much like everybody, I thought, that's weird. That's not consistent with her character. I don't understand why she's doing that. And it feels like the WWE had that kind of same thought, because she said the next week that I was just trying to make a statement. So that's good that they kind of backed off of it. I think the other problem people are having is that there's an Elimination Chamber match with the women to determine who faces Becky Lynch, and it already feels like it's going to be Shayna. So what might the point be of the match? But I feel like Becky has been champion for quite a while now, and I feel like she's running out of women that are of that level that could believably beat her. And Asuka was kind of the last one that I saw that could do it. And I think if somebody is going to go into a program with Becky and kind of meet her same energy, when we were leading up to Survivor Series and they had their face-to-face, that was electric. I think that'll be great for Shayna, obviously. But I think it'll be good for Becky, too, to finally have somebody that, if they take the title from her, that's kind of on her same level energy-wise.
Definitely with Shayna. And I'm also a little bit fearful for the WrestleMania crowd turning on Becky here at WrestleMania. Because it does starting to feel like the momentum is shifting away from Becky. And that's fine. She has had an amazing run. Yeah. It has been one of the best runs in the women's division, if not the single best run in the women's division since the women's revolution happened. Right. And it's been amazing. She was in the main event of WrestleMania, all of that. I think it's just time. And to have Shayna Baszler be the one to take it from her, I think is, if you're going to do it and have somebody credible enough to do it, I think this is where you pull the trigger. Of course, we're getting ahead of ourselves by like 3 steps because the match hasn't happened, the match hasn't been announced, but we all know how wrestling works. This is just the way it's going, and that's totally fine. Yep. And if Becky's going to lose to her, this is how you lose, is Shayna Baszler. And as I said, with the crowd reaction could be 50-50 at best, and that might be generous for Becky come WrestleMania time. And when I look at this Elimination Chamber match, you have Natalya, you have Liv Morgan, you have Shayna Baszler, Asuka, Ruby Riott, and Sarah Logan. And the winner gets obviously a Raw Women's Championship match at WrestleMania 36. So when you look at this, I mean, yes, Shayna Baszler is head and shoulders times 3 above anyone else that could possibly win this match. It just isn't even close. It's I don't even know why they even bother with the match. Just kind of just skip forward and go, look, Shayna's going to win this. We know that. Right. And I think the small issue I have with this is that you have Ruby Riott and Sarah Logan in this. I mean, I don't even know the last time either of them won a match. And, I mean, this kind of stuff, it seems as if they're just kind of taking the women that don't really have much going on and throwing them in the match with Shayna Baszler. And I don't know. So when you have like half the competitors there for absolutely no reason and didn't seem to earn any kind of way into this match, it takes away a little bit, especially considering that Shayna is beyond a favorite. I mean, this This isn't even close. So, anyway, with this happening on the horizon, the bite itself, I've been really wrestling with, no pun intended.
See what you did there.
Yeah, see, I can be smart too. They have, this bite was really something that on the surface I said, initially was like, why do they need to do that, right? And I've heard podcasts talk about, this is not something that Shayna needed to do. They could have done this successfully with Shayna coming out and just making, standing there and staring at Becky and then staring at the WrestleMania sign and people go crazy. Well, we've seen that formula happen over and over and over before, and it works. It's a tried and true formula of getting a reaction. She didn't even have to say anything. She could have just had a face off and then pointed at the sign and off we go. But the fact that she bit Becky right off the bat, and she had the blood caps in her mouth. It wasn't real blood. We all know that. It was a lot of blood. Fine. I actually, the more I'm talking about it, the more I'm in favor of it. Did I love it and think it was the best thing? No. But it was impactful. It got people talking more than if they just did the traditional face-off and stare at the WrestleMania sign together. I think it was vicious off the bat. It wasn't just let's build to the physicality. It was like 0 to 100, and I don't know where they go from here. I'm having trouble with Becky as an arrogant babyface bringing bags of cash, as if she just stopped at an ATM before, or she just carries that much cash on her to say, I'm going to pay my fine up front. And I'm having issues with Becky Lynch's character as a babyface anyway. I have been for a little bit.
Yep.
And I think Shayna seems like the more cool, relaxed new face that I think people may gravitate to.
It definitely does seem that way. When you started talking about the bite, I was very anti, and I couldn't have seen it that way. I do see your point though with making an impact, and I think what helped it is that she didn't come out the next week as like a new vampire character, or that's not a part of her thing now. She was just trying to freak out Becky, get in her head, and go from there. As far as Becky, there has been kind of a transition from the reason people liked her to start with was that she was chasing the title. She was not respected. She always took a backseat to Charlotte until one time she finally turned on Charlotte. And now the problem is, well, I'm happy that she's been champion and she's very good and I'm glad to see it. She has been champion for a long time and she has beaten a lot of people. And at some point, your character has to change. Unfortunately, I know if I were a fighter and I had beaten that many people and kept saying I was the man and kept proving it, I would probably get pretty arrogant as well. But the problem is she's the baby face, which doesn't really work when you're pulling out bags of cash or when you're super cocky or you have a goat shirt or things like that. The character seems to be kind of wonky to me from where we started.
That's the issue I have. It's just it's over the top arrogance, and I get that some people find that charming. It's starting to wear a little thin on me. Not that I wouldn't boo her, but I wouldn't also scream at the top of my lungs like I'm a teenager in 1998 at Backstreet Boys concert. I wouldn't. I don't know. I don't know how really to feel about Becky, because she seems to be a little bit off of her game lately, and I don't know if that is because of the writing or the execution or a little bit of both. I don't think she's so off track that it's embarrassing. No way. But I think we're all just probably leading to the fact that this is just time for Becky to drop the belt. Now, does that mean that they do a double turn at WrestleMania with her and Shayna? Maybe. I think it's possible. It's not easy to do. But with Becky holding on to it for so long, I think people are just kind of like, okay, cool, you've had your run, you've had an amazing run, it's time to move on. And I think people look at WrestleMania as that crossroads.
Right.
And if they dare to have Becky beat Shayna clean at WrestleMania, I think that the next night on Raw could be very brutal for Becky Lynch. And it would be, I think, a heel turn, similar to the passion people felt for her babyface turn at SummerSlam last year or 2 years ago. it could be that type of visceral reaction, especially if Becky comes out and gloats. Because I think Shayna is very respected. Shayna looks different. She's not that pretty, long blonde hair, but I'm a wrestler. She looks like, and she is a legitimate badass. And I think people respect her and want to see her succeed. She's new on the roster, right? The main roster anyway. So I just think there's going to be a lot of backlash and resentment if Becky wins and beats Shayna clean.
I think there'd be a lot of resentment, and I think you're right that she would get booed the next night. And my even bigger problem than that is if Becky beats Shayna at WrestleMania and shows up on Raw the next week, who the hell interrupts her? Who are we doing next? She's gone through everyone. I don't see anybody else that I would believe would take the title from her. Shayna's the one, even more than Asuka, that I can see taking the title from her. And I just think if you keep Becky as champion, I don't necessarily have a problem with that in and of itself. But I don't understand when she's cutting a promo that next Monday, who would even interrupt her to set up another title match. You're running out of people before you start doing, rematches again.
I mean, maybe Ronda Rousey, right? Because she's been, been rumored forever. I really don't believe we'll see Ronda until the next night or the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. I don't need it. And then you set up a Becky and Ronda part 2. But I mean, I guess the argument on that is, well, do you really want them competing at whatever the pay-per-view? I always want to think it's Backlash, and it's not Backlash for the
should be
pay-per-view after
Backlash.
WrestleMania. Is it Backlash? Okay.
It either is or should be.
Okay, well, so we'll assume it is, and
Yep.
I don't know if that's really Backlash worthy. I mean, we've seen them certainly put out some really large main events on, quote, B pay-per-views, but I don't know, just a thought that maybe Ronda Rousey is the one, and Becky comes out and says, I've beaten them all, and gloats, and, you have the crowd booing the hell out of her, and she's calling herself the GOAT and saying there's no one left. And boom, you hear Ronda Rousey come out, and she's the babyface. I mean, there's things you can do here for Becky if they want to continue with her as champion. But it's certainly going to be an interesting ride. I mean, this WrestleMania is shaping up to be very interesting on so many levels of things that look like they're foregone conclusion, and they may not be.
Right.
So the other thing I want to touch on with you, too, is Seth Rollins and his evolution as the Monday Night Messiah. Really, really pouring this religious-based character on heavy. And I think my quick analysis on this is at a very high level. I think they started off very strong with the AOP and their suits and Seth Rollins being the leader of Monday Night Raw, and they morphed this into the Monday Night Messiah. He's got stained glass. I love the shirt. He's got Murphy, no longer Buddy. He's just Murphy. He's obviously got the AOP, and I love his jacket. The jacket kind of reminds me of Bane from like Dark Knight Rises. That's the first thing I thought of. But I think he's doing good. There have been some slowdowns, and I don't think that he's as hot as they were when they first came up and became this group that is really not a named group yet, this faction. And I think a little bit of the steam has been taken out because of the Edge Orton angle that has superseded it. And so this has kind of taken a backseat to the Randy Orton Edge storyline, which is clearly their top story. But overall, I'm liking the group. I think that there could be some momentum needed for Seth Rollins in particular to continue this. And yes, we have Kevin Owens involved and Samoa Joe, who's apparently injured again. Yeah. They just continue to lose week after week after week. Obviously with this past Monday Night Raw, he hits a stunner on Rollins. So overall, I would say it's a success. And I would love to see Seth with a major championship with a bunch of heavies and people to take his bumps and do his dirty work. Because you'll notice Seth always slithers out of the ring, which I love. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. Short of it is, I'm really liking this. There's some room for improvement, but I would say this is like a B+.
I would say I'd agree that it's a B+. I think really the only problem with it is that it's kind of directionless at the moment. I think you're right that it came out when they came together, there was a very clearly defined story, and it feels like they filled out pages 1, 2, and 3, and now we're past that, and they only have cliff notes now. And I feel like I need it to be somebody else besides Kevin Owens and Samoa Joe. I think that was great for your first hurdle, but I think you went to the well one too many times, where I don't necessarily want to keep seeing them fight the Viking Raiders with Samoa Joe and Kevin Owens. It feels like we're just doing the same thing over. And I agree with you that I'd like to see Seth just have a major championship and let his group take his bumps for him. You're right, he disappears every time. But I think the group is really good, and Seth is really good in this character. But I think I need somebody for them to go up against that isn't just every week on Raw.
Yeah, there is that sort of that stale taste to it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it hasn't really been that long. It's not a Corbin Reigns type of longevity, but it does start to feel a little bit repetitive because the outcome seems to always be the same.
Right.
And it's usually with Samoa Joe and Kevin Owens and the Viking Raiders on the losing end of things.
Exactly.
And yeah, there needs to be something. Directionless is a good way to put it. They've got a lot of potential. They've got a lot of energy there. It's just they don't know where they're focusing it on. And I don't know if WWE knows, or they're just putting them in a holding pattern with this same group week after week until they get to whoever they want to go up against this group. And yet now we have the Street Profits. I mean, there's your answer, right? This past week, the Street Profits came in and made the save before Seth was going to stomp Kevin Owens in again.
Right.
I don't know if the Street Profits are really the long-term answer. I tend to lean on no.
Yeah.
I'm going to say no to that, but at least there was a small change into the story of now that group is outnumbered. If you look at the Viking Raiders with Kevin, assuming Joe is injured,
right.
And now you have the Street Profits joining in and evening the odds. And I don't know. I would like to see this have a true, strong direction. And there's been a lot of rumors of, CM Punk's going to join and I've heard that. Could there be a story there? There could be. I mean,
yeah.
But does Punk want to get himself involved in a group, basically a gang war? I don't think so. I think if Punk ever came back, I know it's something a little bit off topic here, but if Punk ever came back, I could see him facing Seth Rollins to be, the ultimate equalizer to put down this group. But maybe if Punk ever came back, to me it would be one-on-one only. But I don't know. What are your thoughts? Yeah.
I think that you're right. And if erasing every story that's here, I could talk myself into CM Punk wanting to come back to face Edge or The Fiend. If you're CM Punk, are you coming back from however many years of retirement to go up against the Monday Night Messiah and Buddy Murphy and the AOP? That doesn't feel like I'm coming out of retirement kind of story to me. I mean, there would be some connections there with CM Punk and the Straight Edge Society and Seth Rollins with this kind of cult thing, but it doesn't feel like a big enough thing for CM Punk to come back to. I could see a scenario where the group starts to implode down the road, and I can definitely see like a Randy Orton and Evolution thing with Buddy Murphy, and then we have that match, which could be good. But I don't see CM Punk thinking that would be enough. I think in order to get CM Punk back, you'd have to blow him away with something that he's not done before.
And CM Punk has certainly done a lot in the business. So
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, again, many people could make the case for this, and I see where they could because of that little mini back and forth feud that they had on Twitter, and then it was on WWE Backstage. It's not enough, I think. I don't think people look at CM Punk and Seth Rollins and go, "Oh, that's such a dream match." I'd love to see it.
I'd like to see it, but I'm not coming out of my chair for it.
No, I'm not, and I don't think CM Punk is either. So I don't know what that formula is, though, for Punk. I'm not. I haven't really thought through of what could the scenario be for, CM Punk getting the script and going, that's it. That's what I would come back for. I don't know the answer to that. And right. But I do know the answer is probably not in a gang warfare where he would be drowned out and really just the focus wouldn't be on Punk as much as it should be if he's just coming back for a one-on-one against somebody. So, I mean, I wouldn't rule him out of a WrestleMania appearance.
Sure.
I mean, even if it's not in a match or setting up a program, he certainly could make a showing. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of potential here, and rumors now are floating about Stone Cold being on the March 16th edition of Raw for whatever reason. I don't know. I mean, there are things now. This happens every WrestleMania season. I mean, this happens. It's just cyclical where this legend's coming back and this legend's coming back and they're going to have a one-off. What if they come back for a match? I mean, 99% of the time, it's usually, even if it's correct, it's not for a match, and it's just to simply get eyeballs on the product to pop a rating for the matches they are actually going to execute at WrestleMania. But anyway, it's always a fun time with WrestleMania season. So the other women's match that I did want to ask you about, which is the other one of the other 3 women's matches for their women's championship matches, is the NXT Women's Championship in Charlotte and Rhea Ripley. And I'm glad Charlotte finally has a direction. She was floating out into the the ether for months and had no direction until the Royal Rumble, and made a huge impact there, and obviously went on to finally accept Rhea Ripley's challenge for the NXT Championship. I'm excited for it. I think if they went any other way, the fans would have lost their minds if Charlotte went with Becky. Oh my God! Or that I can't imagine the fan. I mean, it would have been the biggest collective groan in the history of the world. I mean, they work well together, but my God, I don't need to see them together in a match for like another couple of years, maybe a year, a couple of years. I'm good. It would be like Randy Orton, John Cena, where they just had an ongoing, my God, forever and ever and ever. And so I think this is the best thing that they possibly could have done with Charlotte at WrestleMania. What do you think?
I agree with you. I think that there was no way that they were going to be able to, as you said, have her go to Raw or SmackDown to challenge for that title. I think you run into the same problem with Charlotte, some of them, that you run into with Roman Reigns, where Charlotte is clearly their person, and so people are a little bit tired of it. And this was something that when she won the Royal Rumble, I didn't even think of this as a possibility. It's a made-up sport, but still in my head, I was like, I don't think by the rules you can go for the NXT title. And you get a chance to make Rhea Ripley, who's been on a tear, you get a chance to get more eyeballs on that part of NXT. You get a chance for Charlotte and Rhea to have a really good match, and Rhea has somebody to work with in Charlotte that's been there and done that. And if you do it right, then you can have Rhea come out looking even stronger than you did. There were 2 bad choices and 1 excellent choice for her to go for the NXT title. And in this case, they picked the excellent choice, and I'm excited to see that match where I wouldn't have been with the other ones.
No. Like you said, it was just a bad decision, and then there's a terrible decision, and then there was the excellent one, right? So, and honestly, I think the real up in the air question is, for out of all those championships, is the SmackDown Women's Championship. I mean, you have Bayley holding it. She's a heel, but I'm still advocating for her being a heel, but I just don't. They haven't given her a lot of time on the mic over the last a couple of months since they turned her. I think her being with Sasha, who also turned at the same time, watered down the turn. And we don't know where Sasha is. I know many people are speculating that Sasha Banks could come back and end up screwing Bayley, and then you have a Sasha versus Bayley match at WrestleMania. I mean, I don't know what to think about that, because I was so against them for the longest time when they were on Raw, back and forth. I love you, I hate you. We're in a match, we're not in a match. Let's kiss, let's not. I love you. It was just so ridiculous for so long that is still not out of my brain. So what I want, I mean, if done right, maybe, but I have a feeling that ultimately this SmackDown Women's Championship is going to be in some kind of multi-woman match. I mean, I just foresee that, because I don't see somebody that's a standout. Oh, it's going to be, it's going to be Naomi, or, there's nobody to me is like, that's WrestleMania worthy. So when I see that, I go on, here comes lazy booking, here comes a multi-women's match. I mean, that to me is just what I think they're going to do.
Yeah, it does seem like that. I mean, you kind of summed up Bayley perfectly where, I mean, she's a heel. Like, she's not bad. She's good. She just hasn't had a lot of time or opportunity, rather, to show anything. And you're right. I mean, Naomi seemed to be who they were setting up. But, I mean, I think she got a great reaction on her return. But I don't know that momentum is going to carry in and feel like a big match. Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair is a big match because of the two people. And then Becky Lynch and Shayna Baszler is a big match because of the two people. I don't see anybody that you can put with Bayley that would be a good one-on-one match. You wouldn't bring Ronda Rousey back for that. You'd bring her back for Becky. So, yeah, that WWE solution is generally to throw a bunch of dice in a hat and see what numbers come up. That's 100% going to end up being what happens.
Yeah, it is, and I am very anti-multi-anybody matches.
Right.
I guess I am anti-multi-person matches because it's so overdone in WWE to the point of nauseum, and it doesn't feel special, and it should. And so, especially at WrestleMania, and double especially when it's a championship match at WrestleMania,
right?
When they have multi-person matches, it's just it's overkill. But I would bet a significant amount of money it's going to be a multi-woman match for the SmackDown Women's Championship because they have the other two are singles. So I have that feeling. Yeah. The other thing, and this is the last thing that I had, and of course you can bring up anything that maybe I missed, is Drew McIntyre and he's the men's Royal Rumble winner for 2020. Yeah. He seems to be right now in a bit of a holding pattern as Brock Lesnar does what Brock Lesnar does and show up every 4 weeks.
Right.
And it just comes with the territory right now. I mean, that's who Brock Lesnar is, and he gets paid millions to just occasionally show up and stand there or deliver an F5. And he's got the best job of all time. I mean, he's getting paid the most amount of money for the least amount of work, and kudos to him.
Absolutely.
But with Drew McIntyre, who is there every week, the WWE seems to just at least be reminding fans that, hey, he's here. Let's make the most of, while Brock is out, getting the fans to know Drew McIntyre in a way that maybe they didn't before, and make him feel a little more relatable, and use him even when Brock's not there. And I think they've done a good job. He hasn't been overexposed. He's in this kind of mini holding pattern with MVP, who, I mean, he got his head kicked off 2 weeks in a row. Bad. And so I think this has been a successful, just kind of steady, as the course goes. I think they haven't made any missteps. It's just kind of like, okay, good. We're going from A to B to C, and it hasn't been crazy. It's just been nice and steady with Drew McIntyre after his win at the Royal Rumble.
It has been, and he got that great reaction at the Royal Rumble because people do like him. However, before the Royal Rumble, we, like you said, didn't get to know him. And really the only way to do that is for him to have promos and have time in the ring. And like you said, they have done a good job of giving him these obstacles where he's not getting distracted by any one thing, and he's not going off into a separate feud. So his mind is on Brock Lesnar, but at the same time, he's not every week coming out calling out Brock Lesnar and Brock's not answering him, because then we run into a John Cena Undertaker situation where Drew would just kind of look like a dork who's not worth Brock's time. He's coming across like somebody who could be the head of the show and who can be in multiple kinds of segments. I was thinking about it, and it kind of feels like the way that they're building Drew before he wins the title is a much more successful version of how they tried to build Diesel, Kevin Nash, after he won the title, where he's doing a lot of different things. He's a babyface. He's a nice guy, but an ass kicker. And he's getting a lot of chances. The difference is Drew McIntyre has like charisma and is excelling, I feel like, in these spots. You're right, he is in a holding pattern, but he's at least doing different dynamic things that are starting to put him over and starting to show us that personality. So by the time we get to WrestleMania, I'm more invested in seeing him win the WWE title.
I am too. This is a match that it intrigues the hell out of me. I mean, from so many different levels of, the thing is too, we can't look at that one as a foregone conclusion that Drew wins. I mean, that to me is not necessarily the case. You have Brock Lesnar, who has retained the championship at WrestleMania before against one Roman Reigns. It has happened. Again, if I was booking, I would still have Drew go over, but it would be an extremely hard-fought, in-your-face, 10 to 12-minute match. And I think that hopefully is the road we go. I don't need a surprising, 5-second match. I don't need those anymore from Brock. I'm over it. I would like to see some competitiveness against Brock Lesnar, and certainly Drew McIntyre presents that. He also presents like relatability and realism and authenticism. Is that a word? Authentic? He's very authentic. Maybe I meant a word.
I knew what you meant. Yeah, I think you nailed it.
He's very authentic, at least on camera. He comes across that way. The way he talks, his confidence is almost palpable. Mm-hmm. He just doesn't feel like he's playing a character, even though he is, but he feels like he's himself and he's comfortable. Yeah. He doesn't feel like he's Roman Reigns trying to play the corporate image of who they want him to be. And so even if he is, he's doing a great job of covering it. So I love that Drew just feels like himself. He feels like a legit badass. Yep. He's obviously been everywhere. I mean, he's been to other places beyond WWE. People know who he is. He feels like he's very polished. And I like Drew McIntyre as he is right now. He is great in the ring. His body is impeccable. He looks like a champion. He speaks like a champion. And I said for a year after he came back, I said, how is he not a champion? How is he not held gold? I mean, he was being Shane McMahon's lackey. It was just brutal for a while. And this is finally, Paul Heyman talked some sense into Vince McMahon and allowed him to win the Rumble. So I'm really looking forward to the match at WrestleMania.
I'm really looking forward to it. Now, in fairness to him being Shane's lackey, Matt, the part you're forgetting is that Shane was the best in the world. So I don't know what he was supposed to do.
Yeah, that's forgot.
Like how do you win a title when you're trying to help the best in the world win a title? He does. You said it. He feels like a champion. He talks like a champion. He carries himself like one. And so I'm not rooting to see Brock Lesnar lose the title. I'm rooting to see Drew McIntyre win it, which is very different. And I want to see this match be what Brock Roman was the year that Seth cashed in, where they had that really hard-hitting match.
Yes.
That was really good. And
people forget how good that was. Yeah.
They only remember the Seth part of that match, and that match was really good before he got there. And it put Drew over to the moon, and then you can have your side stories with Drew and have people come after him and then work on your next person. I think you have somebody who can actually be on the show every week and not be a Seth Rollins where we kind of slowly turn on him, because it feels like I'm looking at the real Drew. With Seth, I can sometimes feel like he's reading off a piece of paper. With Drew, I feel like he's legitimately living a dream, and he's just this badass that wants to be the best and wants to be a champion.
Seth, you're right. Seth I never connected with the babyface Seth character. Never. Never, ever felt it. I think with Seth, it was more of people just wanting to see the title off Brock, not necessarily seeing the title go to Seth.
That was the whole point of the pop when he won the title, is that he took it from Brock, who wasn't on the show, and Seth promised to be on the show every week.
Yeah, that's what he stood on. That was the ground he stood on. And it wasn't a pop for Seth becoming champion. It was a pop for Brock losing it. And that, to me, this is, like you said, this is a much different feeling with Drew. You actually want to see him win it. And that's the key here, is you want to see Drew win the championship. Because Seth, let's face it, he is a natural born heel. I don't need Seth as a babyface. He's got a snivelly, whiny voice naturally. That's just how he was born. He can't help that. That is ear piercing. He felt pandering. As you said, he felt like he was reading off a piece of paper sometimes. He was always saying the we stuff. We did it. Like, I don't need people to transparently pander to me. It turns me off so quickly. Yeah. So I just want you to be badass. I will take care of living vicariously through you. Right. I don't need you to tell me it's we all of a sudden. Like, it's just, I don't know, maybe that's me, but so with Drew, it feels very natural. He already, as you said, he's got the championship feeling to him. All he needs to do is now go there and get it. And, the thing is, too, you can make a case for Brock retaining in some kind of sniveling way. Not necessarily cheating, but I don't have the finish, but some kind of way that it would keep the credibility of Drew where he didn't really lose to Brock, and it also is Brock sneaking out of there or escaping Drew McIntyre with the belt. Because Brock, let's face it, is the biggest star WWE has. I mean, inarguably, I don't care about you. Roman can't hold the candle. Seth, Samoa Joe, nobody is as big as Brock Lesnar. So if you're going to have Drew beat Brock clean, he's beating the biggest star in the company, a star that you're going to still have around for the next couple of years under contract. So the case could be made for Brock retaining in some kind of Lady Luck is on his side or some kind of other scenario. But I don't know. Ultimately, I would have Drew win, but you can make a case for Brock retaining.
You certainly can. And that's one of those things where you almost kind of have to be watching the show, because you know that last year was an exception, but generally at WrestleMania, you're not, or a pay-per-view, you're not getting everything that you want. There's usually one or two, oh, come on, man, endings, which you have to have in wrestling. And if we get to a point where we're kind of getting everything we want, and this is the main event, I can absolutely see a scenario in which Brock underhandedly retains the title. I can definitely see that playing out. And I really think that they have an idea that they want Drew to be champion, but I think between now and WrestleMania is going to, what Drew does and how he performs in all these spots, it feels like he's taking a bunch of little tests. And if he passes them, then at WrestleMania, he becomes the guy. This feels like an evaluation period or a test, and we can kind of tell leading up to it if it's really going well. I feel like Drew's going to win, and I feel like he's going to anyway. If he starts stumbling and doesn't work out, then I can absolutely see Brock somehow underhandedly keeping it.
Like you said, he feels like he's on probation. It's and yes, this is not Drew's first rodeo. My God, we all know he was dubbed as the chosen one his first time around in WWE, and that didn't work out. And then he left, and he came back after 7 years or whatever it was. Yeah. And feels like a new man. I mean, not from physically, but from a verbal perspective, everything. It just feels like I said, he's just polished. He is a true pro wrestler, and he feels old school. He's like a throwback. I love everything about Drew.
He's a totally different guy.
Yes, it doesn't even look. Nothing about who he was feels like who he is now. It's crazy. No.
It's insane. And as much as I love the Broken Dreams theme that he had, and I would love to see it again, I can understand why they're not using it, because those guys are two different guys in terms of their character and how they talk. And the old guy was at best an Intercontinental Champion. There was no scenario in which I could envision him being the guy. This guy, I can 100% see being the guy.
Mm-hmm. Like being your guy, like the guy that the company carries themselves. Exactly. Like you carry the company on your back.
Yep.
And like you said, they're two different guys. We all love the theme, but I just don't know if it's appropriate at this point.
Right.
Maybe they'll I mean, I've heard rumors, they'll throw it out at WrestleMania. Maybe.
That seems like a surprise WrestleMania thing, and that'll be really cool, and I'm gonna love it. But at the same time, I completely understand why they're not using it.
Yep, and I'm fine with this theme right now.
Yeah, it's badass.
It speaks. It's like legitimate entrance. It doesn't feel like it's some kind of cartoon, sports entertainment-y type of entrance.
It's like war drums.
Yeah, it's war drums. He comes out, he just looks the part. Mm-hmm. He just comes to the ring. It's very simple. And again, they're not overexposing him right now. He has been, he's just in one segment and he's gone. It's not like he's threaded throughout the show. It's just, hey, let me do whatever I'm doing with MVP. Let me kick his head off and leave. Like, whatever it may be, he gives, or the WWE is producing him right now where we're left wanting more and where we want to see more. And it's like, oh, that was cool. I can't wait to see him next week. It wasn't like, oh my God, okay, we get it. I don't feel overexposed or saturated with Drew. It's just enough every week.
Exactly. Yeah, he's doing, and I think that it helps that he's only doing these little segments and he's not I think it actually helps that he's not main eventing Raw every week in some kind of tag match, because really all I need to see from Drew is I need to see him beat somebody up, Claymore, and then I want to hear him talk, because I know in WWE you have to be able to talk and carry a crowd. You can accomplish all those things in one segment with MVP in the VIP lounge or whatever it's called, and then leave the main event over so that he's not exposed. It's actually, for all their faults, WWE thus far is doing a really good job of building him in such a way that he feels like somebody I want to see become the man.
Yeah, I felt that way without having to be told to feel that way.
Right. Yeah.
That's the key versus Seth last year, which is and why Seth is so puzzled why the fans turned on him is I mean, he legitimately as a person still doesn't understand why the crowd turned on him, and he feels he attributed himself to Tom Brady and said, when you're at the top and you're that good, people want to see you fall. No,
that's not it, man.
That's not it, dude. It's because number one, you never really connected with the fans as a babyface to begin with. You are born as a heel. You are just meant to be a heel. Your promos felt very rehearsed and very forced with the we stuff. You come on screen with Becky Lynch over the summer and tag against Lacey Evans and Baron Corbin. Your on-screen chemistry with Becky was terrible. It was cringeworthy.
So bad.
It was. You guys may be a great couple off the screen, but my God, they don't translate when the red light goes on.
Crazy.
It hurt so much. And then to top it off, you had the cherry on top with the Fiend at Hell in a Cell to end the year. And everything that was a complete you-know-what show. Yeah. And it's still hurting the Fiend. I mean, really he's recovered to some degree, but I can't underestimate or underscore how much damage that did for both guys. So, I mean, you put all that together, it's not because you're Tom Brady and we love to see people at the top fall. That's not applicable here.
No, that's not what it is at all.
Yeah,
it's all these missteps along the way, and you don't seem genuine. Now, when you're the Monday Night Messiah, you seem genuine. You seem like a sniveling piece of what. That's what your face looks like. That's what your voice sounds like. And it was insincere. And if there's one thing wrestling fans hate and can sniff out immediately, it's insincerity.
We have this sixth sense. I mean, and I think as human beings in general, whether it's in real life or pro wrestling, we just sense out when there's BS going on.
Exactly.
And you can sense out when people aren't being real. There's like a mask there, and it's just, you just know and you feel it. And whether it's pro wrestling or it's real life, we just have it. And so with Drew, I don't feel it. With Seth, I always felt it as a baby. I always was trying to convince myself to like Seth and get behind him. And when you have to think and consciously make an effort to do it, it's not meant to be, and there's something wrong. And when he turned heel, I said, they're going to cheer him. Even CM Punk on backstage said the ironic part of turning him heel will be that people will cheer him. I said, no, it's not going to happen, because people legitimately don't like him as a babyface. As a heel, he can be so good that it's not going to be like, oh, he's so good, we're going to cheer him. The difference is, Seth's so good as a heel that people will boo him because he's so good at his job. I don't need a cool heel. Like Chris Jericho in AEW, he's a cool heel. People still cheer him because he's entertaining. People don't, as heels now, I don't need a heel so entertaining that I want to cheer them. I think the definition has been kind of warped. Heels legitimately piss you off, legitimately make you angry, like Randy Orton did on Raw and has been doing. I don't need heels being so good at what they do to be entertaining, because that's what will get the cheers. So, I don't know. I think I made my point. But.
Exactly. No, couldn't agree more. You have to have at least some heels be heels, because the two reasons that you want people to come to your show is to see this person prevail against the odds, but you also need the person that you want to see get punched in the face. And Chris Jericho's great as a heel and gets cheered, but if you have all Chris Jerichos, that's not going to work out for me.
No, it's not. And I think WWE's philosophy of always putting smiles on people's faces has come back to bite him in the ass.
Yep.
I mean, that is what they live under. Stephanie McMahon, she might as well tattoo it on her forehead because that's what she lives for, is her brand, her brand extension and her brand awareness of WWE and putting smiles on people's faces. How about, this is wrestling, right? Like, this isn't a charity organization. This is pro freaking wrestling. I want to see people I hate get their ass kicked. Like, that's what we watch for.
Yeah.
And yes, you can have a little sports entertainment-y stuff thrown in if it works well. But ultimately, people watch wrestling to watch wrestling and see bad guys versus good guys. That has been, and people may say, oh, that's old school thinking.
No.
Think about any TV show in the history of the world, any movie in the history of creation that has not had a protagonist and an antagonist. It's just storytelling. It's human psychology 101, and it's not going to change.
It's not going to change, and it's always going to work. One of the hottest feuds, the two hottest feuds in wrestling right now are Randy Orton, heel, Edge, face, and MJF, heel, Cody, face.
You got it.
That's it. Simple.
Yeah. It's not. You don't have to. As Jim Ross would always say, just tell me what time it is, not how to make the watch. Like it's so true, because I don't need to overthink wrestling. I want to just be told and shown who the good and bad guys are, and I will tell you if I agree or disagree. I don't want tweeners or people that are supposed to be sports entertainers. I want people that are great at being bad people and are great at being good people, and that you want to get behind and can relate to. And I think WWE a lot of times just goes, well, there's gray. Not in pro wrestling. I don't want people in gray areas. Gray is for lazy booking and for people that are either unsuccessful being a heel or unsuccessful being a babyface. Oh, well, they're in between, right? It's just like real life. People can be both. Not in wrestling. I don't want that, because then there's no emotional investment. You become indifferent to people that are tweeners.
Exactly. You become indifferent, and people in real life are gray, but people in real life don't go to arenas, have music played, walk down a ramp, get in a ring by themselves, and talk to 20,000 people. Gray's not interesting. Being a little bit good and a little bit bad is not particularly interesting. It can work, but when you have 20 people on the roster that all have shades of gray, then your landscape looks gray, and I prefer to see it in color, and black and white clashing against each other is a big part of that. And if I just have a grayscape to work with, I don't know what I'm going to do with that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I could rant about this for an hour. I mean, it's the whole key to wrestling is emotional investment.
Yep.
And I can't get emotionally invested in gray characters, tweeners, or, we'll let the fans decide. No. That's lazy booking.
That's not our job.
No, it's not. I mean, they always say, well, we listen to the fans, it's what they want. And I understand that. And we, more often than not, the fans tell the WWE who they want and who they feel should be in what role. And you could look at Exhibit A of Roman Reigns not being turned to a heel and equate it to Vince McMahon himself only, because I am sure that it has been brought up multiple times of, why the hell are we not doing this? Listen to the audience on a weekly effing basis, year after year after year. And yes, this year has been much softer because of the journey he's been on. But I'm telling you, look out when he gets out of the Corbin program, which is about to turn, and he's about to leave that program in a week. And he moves on to something else, which is the championship against Bray Wyatt. And tell me if all of that progress doesn't just get wiped away in a single swipe. So, I don't know. I'm starting to get heated about it. But anyway, Zach, was there anything that we didn't touch on that maybe you wanted to quickly discuss?
There is one quick thing. It's very important. It's a running theme when you and I get together, and he was in the Royal Rumble. 2 questions for you, Matt. 1, are we ever going to find out? Or 2, what is in Eric Rowan's cage. Go, Matt.
Well, it's certainly not a victory. I'll tell you that. It's not a victory in his cage, because Aleister Black just took him out this week unannounced, and as two guys that have been kicking ass on their own parallel paths, WWE decided to not make that a big deal and have Aleister Black just beat him unceremoniously. So it is not a victory. I really don't. I mean, I keep thinking about what could possibly be in there, but
I haven't stopped thinking about it, Matt.
Oh, so you have probably a better answer than I do.
Matt, here's the thing. Here's the thing, Matt. The last time we talked about it, you said what you just said, which is, I don't know. And I said, best case scenario, hope there's not a real baby in it. And Matt, you said there's no way. And now, Matt, I'm going to ask you one more time. Now that we still don't know what's in it, what could possibly be in that cage, Matt?
I'm going to say nothing. I'm going to say nothing is there.
Oh,
I'm going to say that it's an imaginary something that he has.
Can you imagine finally somebody, like a jobber, pulls the cloth off and it's just empty?
I think that would be the swerve. I mean, I know that he put his hand in and he got bit and he drew blood.
He cut his own hand.
Yeah, right. Like there are ways that you can explain that. I think it's nothing. I think it's just an imaginary pet that he's been carrying around.
We're never going to find out.
No, I mean, it would be like the anonymous Raw general manager. They're never going to pay it off until 7 years later, and it's Hornswoggle, right?
Oh, there we go. It could be Hornswoggle.
What do you think?
I was also thinking nothing, unless he's going to do a Jake the Snake thing with some kind of raccoon or something. I don't know what would bite somebody. Matt, from the second we hung up last time to right now, I haven't been able to get it out of my head, and I can't think of anything that wouldn't be super stupid.
There really is no good answer, right?
No, there's not.
There's no good answer. There's nothing creative enough for me to go, oh, that's awesome. It's not going to happen.
No.
Right?
One day he's just going to show up without the cage, and we're just never going to talk about it again, except me, because I'm not letting this go.
It'll disappear like Katie Vick, right? It just never happened, right? Like, I mean, because I think WWE doesn't know what's in the cage, or they just do stuff and go, we'll figure it out along the way. We're just going to start something cool and we'll figure out what the actual payoff is later. And I think that's the case here, where they just go, we need to do something with Eric Rowan, have him carry a cage around and, put a cloth over it and have the fans keep guessing what it's in there. And, what's in there? Well, I don't know, but we'll figure it out. Like, that's the way I feel like this thing was designed.
Oh, boy.
So.
That's all I had. That's the most important thing going on in wrestling, and I couldn't let us go by without addressing it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that's like the headline, right?
That's what you have me on for, topical things.
That's it. But all right, Zach, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure as always, and you'll continue to undermine my plans of co-hosting, and suddenly maybe you'll just all of a sudden take over this show. I mean, I wouldn't even know. Next thing I know, I'm just, oh yeah, I remember I had a podcast. How the hell did I get everything else?
Well, no, Matt, in fairness, I'm not trying to take your job. I'm trying to take other people's jobs. You'll still be here. Just one day it'll be like, this is week 4 in a row. Why am I still talking to Zach?
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, if you're not after my job, then have at undermining everyone else.
Excellent.
I mean, good thing it's not recording. No one can hear us.
Nobody at all.
So, Zach, thanks so much for coming on. If you want to let everyone know about your social media, or if you want to share that, now's the time. So go ahead.
Social media on Instagram and Twitter, I am the904, and obviously you can hear me here on the podcast. And thank you very much, everybody, for accepting me back. Matt, thank you for having me back. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Absolutely, and hey, maybe we'll talk again sometime soon. I'll leave it at that. Leave it very, kind of out there and anonymous.
Got him.
All right, Zach, thanks so much, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Matt. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.